Representative Knox and Schmidt and McCarthy.
Well, I don't want to keep arguing with Frank, but when you talk about the cost of the roof and the whole plan, you are talking about the other aspects of it, not just the co-op, in my opinion. If we say the co-op is not going to move down, and we still have, what can we do with the building, a core building? If we demolish it, it's an additional cost. You know, how do we house the pellet furnace, et cetera. So when we talk about those whole building costs, I think we're talking more than just the co-op moving down here, aren't we?
Are you asking me? No,
I'm
what I
throwing it
did
out.
was I prorated the amount that they have down for the roof. The co-op is gonna use 1/3 of the room, so I broke it down into 3 parts. And I added $200,000 to what they say is already the cost just to do the co-op area. I added $200,000 for their portion of the roof. That's set between $500,000 and $700,000 just for the co-op. I would suggest that we don't move the co-op at all. Save $700,000 by letting the co-op stay in Conway, and we'll add $5,000 a year into their grant and cover the excess in their rent.
Okay, Representative Schmidt, McCarthy, and Braganza.
Yeah, looking at this, and I wasn't here when this whole discussion took place, but it just seems to me that this whole building here has the potential to be a bottomless money pit on a going forward basis. To save that wing for future expansion, you know, when a wing is abandoned, it goes downhill very quickly, and then whatever you think your future renovation costs would be, I think you need to multiply that by 3. I'd like to see the whole thing come down, see a minimal steel building come in over it to accommodate those core functions. I agree with Representative McCarthy. We really have to take a hard look at the co-op extension. I have no issue with them remaining in Conway. We have to look at the cost factor of what it costs to bring them down here to accommodate it. And then we have a clean building. And frankly, we're out of this morass. That's where I'm coming from.
Okay, Representative Braganza.
If the co-op is kept up in the Mount Washington Valley, it reduces the necessity for this building by 3 items: the pellet boiler, the laundry, and the maintenance and supply. The laundry can be done in the private sector. That can be sent out, which just reduces it to the maintenance and the pellet boiler. Another, like a mobile unit, for example, could be brought right next to the current nursing home, or to the new nursing home, so that they're maybe 20 feet apart and not the great distance between the old nursing home and the new nursing home. And that would eliminate the need for this building entirely.
Representative Fleck.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I think there are a couple of things that we need to keep in mind. One is the first item that we discussed was the demolition of the remainder of the facility, which is a $300,000 cost. So that's right up front. But the other things, if we look at options for renovation, I think there are some lower cost options. The difference between the $500,000 and the $300,000 for the renovation for the co-op area, that's $200,000. We have a roof system that can be repaired, I think, adequately for $50,000. So that reduces our cost considerably and gives us a building that has a great deal of potential use. The other facility that we would build would have a very limited use. And I think it's one thing to build for yesterday or to build for today's needs, but I think when we have a facility that's available to us, we need to be thinking of some options that would be open to us in the future, whatever those might be, since it's not really costing what we might otherwise spend. I think of things, for instance, In many places, off-campus courses are offered to students. What do we offer them around here? If you look at what's happening to Carroll County in terms of the demographics, where is the age group? It's in the older group. It's projected to be well in the older group. What are we doing for younger people to retain them in Carroll County, whether it's through educational programs, work potential, whatever that might be? Those are things, those issues might not cost us anything. For instance, if we had someone coming to us on the complex teaching courses, that would generate income for us. Those institutions that do that don't do that without reimbursing the occupant or the owner of those places for the cost. So I think there are lots of opportunities. I just throw that out as one. But I think I'm reluctant. I feel, for instance, that I have, as a legislator, a fiduciary responsibility, not only for the funds, but also for property. We have a piece of property here, we have a building. We just don't indiscriminately say, let's tear it down, because that proves a point. I just would like to see options open to us that are reasonable. I do agree that I'm not ready to spend. I would never advocate spending the top dollar that we've seen so far.
Okay. Representative McConkey and then Sorensen, Commissioner Sorensen.
Thank you. Commissioners, I want to thank you. Here we are, August 22nd, 2011, and we've commissioned a study to find out what it's going to cost to build and or renovate a building. I've sat here for months on end hearing how this delegation is delaying your progress on bringing the good people from Cooperative Extension here. I think myself, if the conversation had started out months ago, a year ago, that this is going to cost us $1 million, $1.5 million, it would have slowed right down. We would have had 6 or 7 months or 8 months that we could have been looking at what the proper solution is. I firmly believe that the most we should be considering here is salvaging the core building. By salvaging the core building, we would allow for the future storage expansion needs of the county. We would provide a space, whether it's using what's there or making a new vanilla envelope for the cooperative extension. And that the rest of the cost, it should be borne on monies that we already have or monies that we could secure at a reasonable rate that I keep hearing about, should be to clean up the rest of the site and get rid of the buildings that we don't need. That will take care of our need, and that is going to be another expense. But if I believed in this fairy tale of $500,000 for 9 months, and I found out now that it's $1.5 million, I think we can do what we need to do by renovating our existing core, taking down the rest of the building. Let's find out that number. Let's belly up to the bar and get this done. That's my thought.
Commissioner Sorensen.
Madam Chairman, I'd like to make a couple of comments. One in regard to Representative McConkey. In the minutes that I read last night, Representative McConkey wanted to slow this down and make sure we did things right. Number one comment. Number two, Representative Fleck is right. I got a report here from the Conway District Office from Health and Human Services. There's over 65 years old. There's 10,100 people here in Carroll County. So the aging is correct. We have 9,000, almost 10,000 that are less than 19 years old, and 30,000, almost 31,000 that are 19 to 64 years old. That's a fact from the Office of Health and Human Services. As far as a potential for the other wing, we've looked at several other alternatives as well. One, we haven't talked about probation. Right now, I believe Commissioner Solomon figured what they're paying down in Wolfboro was $18 a square foot.
I believe that was the number.
We can do it cheaper if they move here. They need 1,000 square feet. Carroll County Coalition for Public Health is looking for space. They're an organization that gets funding through the federal government and the state. They need space, office space. They don't have it right now. They're made up of total throughout Carroll County. They got representatives from the hospitals on there, other agencies, and so forth. The other item we're looking at is privatizing for childcare. We heard from Donna Lane back maybe a month ago now that there is money available to rehab a portion of that building for childcare. Now, what would childcare do for us here at the facility? Over the years, we've had problems with childcare being available for our employees. Childcare office isn't open, so the employees come in late. All kinds of problems with that. I don't know right now what the childcare or the number of kids that would fit into this, but it would be privatized. We would rent the space and not get involved in childcare facility at all. County attorney. I was informed this morning that the county attorney needs more space. Those of you that are on the subcommittee, I hope you've checked it out and realize that they're looking for more storage space. Do we have any purpose whatsoever for any kind of emergencies, whether it be a fire, a flood, a hurricane? Is there any place, and what do we do with these people when something like that happens to their personal home? Whether it happens right here on the campus. If something happens to our new nursing home, God forbid, where do we move people for emergency purposes only? Enough said right now. Thank you.
Representative McConkey,
Thank
please.
you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My first part of my question is to you, Mr. Chairman. Have you received the list from the commissioners on, you had asked many times on what was needed, the exact needs of the county and these buildings going forward? Have you received that list?
I don't believe we have.
Okay, thank you. Secondly, to Chairman Sorensen, without that list, and I hope that's coming forward to us today,
It did.
I keep hearing what I would like to have happen. Of all those items that you've listed, have you entered any tentative agreements with any of those agencies? Have you come up with have you determined what that cost is going to be, what they are going to pay? Or are we still going down this road of what I could do with that space someday?
I think, Mr. Chairman, to answer that question, we need to come up with a cost of renovation. Then we can figure out or analyze it as to what we're going to charge for rental space. If we can get it down to $10 a square foot for rental space, I think probation would move in if they're paying $17 a square foot now. And the same is true for this agency, Public Health, Carroll County Public Health Coalition. Until we can come up with a square foot cost, who's going to commit themselves to come into our facility? These are all strictly potential. I don't know about private, whether we can find somebody that would take over childcare. It's a need, and I think one of the questions that was asked of the commission was to come up with a wish list. We've explained the wish list up there, what we'd use the space for. If we need to write it, put it down in writing, we can do that.
Thank you. If I could follow up. My
Okay,
understanding was, Madam Chairman, that we were looking for a needs list, not a wish list. And while I'm always concerned, as everyone is in this room, of what happens during a natural disaster, the people of our county and the people of our towns are giving of personal space, property, and money every time. It's not a function of our county to expand beyond what our role is in the event that something happens.
Okay, Representative Merrow, Umberger, and McCarthy.
No, Mark pretty much asked the questions that I was